Welcome to Junior Parent College Planning Night. Great to see you all here. My name is Joe Giglio. I'm Director of Guidance and College Counseling. I'm sure many of you already know me. I'm feeling a lot of sorts tonight because, this is the last dress down day from the amazing food drive that our community did. And how about a round of applause for the food drive? But in my 6 years at prep and in my many years affiliated with this institution, I don't think I've ever done a presentation without a jacket and tie on. So I may look like I'm clothed, but I feel like I'm standing there naked in front of you. So apologies in advance if I'm a little off tonight. So our goal this evening is going to be to kind of walk you through the entire process. Feel free to take notes. I will send out the slides for the presentation to you all via email within the next day or two, so I will have that, and there's resources attached to that. And of course, this is just one step in many. The conversation will continue, and we'll be here to help you through this process as we get your boys all set and ready to go to college in the fall of 2018. Boy, how about that? Let that play around your ears there for a second. Ms. Morris, can I get the next slide, please? Thank you. So we're all here tonight. The most important person in college counseling, I think you already met when you came in, that's Janice Martineau, who was checking folks in. And Janice really runs the place, as you might imagine, and is a key person for your sons to interact with over the course of the next year and a half, as well as you all. So, and Mr. Jim Dodaro was back there as well. And we're also joined by Ms. Mary Durante, who's Director of Student Services, and Ms. Sarah Morissette, and Ms. Belkis Dallin, and Ms. Grace Morris. Okay. All right, so we're all here. I apologize, it's a little hard to see the screen. I'm not sure what's going on there. More lights out? Oh, don't worry about it. That's okay. Can you kind of see the screen behind me a little bit? Okay, we'll make it work.
Once again, you're getting
Yeah. Okay, next slide.
Is that better?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think it's important for us all to kind of stay calm through this process and to have a little bit of perspective. And to calm us down, I hand the microphone over to Ms. Mary Durante. So Mary, do your magic.
No one has ever asked me to calm them down. I usually rile them up. My colleagues and my children know, but I'm going to, and your boys actually know too. But I am going to try. So can we have the next slide? We've been talking to the boys about not getting riled up about college because I say to them, there are 40 of you. And even the boy with the lowest GPA and the lowest standardized test scores can get into probably 1,000 of the colleges across the country if he chooses wisely. Every boy at prep can get into many, many schools. So the issue is really looking at who you are and looking at how to apply to college. One of the myths we're trying to debunk is that all good colleges have to be highly selective ones. I put a list of 20 or 10 colleges on the board, and I asked the boys in my group of juniors to look up and they knew a lot of them, they were pretty impressed with the list, and I said, look up the acceptance rate. And one college had an acceptance rate of 15%, and most of them were in the 60s and 70s. They were really surprised to know that. So I think that when you look at it from that point of view, you can find many schools that are not selective, but that are very, very good. If you don't recognize the name, it's probably not a good school. I think we are expanding their horizons intentionally by having them look at other schools, revisit many schools, and come back and tell them about them. They're learning, I think, that doesn't need to be immediately recognizable. Only students from prestigious institutions gain entrance to graduate and professional schools. Again, as we travel around the country and visit other schools, we hear a lot about acceptance rates to law school, med school, graduate school, and some of the surprising small colleges that the boys have never heard of are very proud to show really fabulous rates of entry to the professional and graduate schools. We tell them also not to avoid challenging classes, but to try to take the class that's right for them, at the right level for them. We talk to college counselors, college admissions folks all the time who will say, well, I looked at his transcript and I didn't see him challenging himself. Maybe he could have tried harder. I think that when we write our letters for the boys too, we always highlight his fortitude and his willingness to challenge himself. They're learning again that test scores aren't always that important, and especially now with the choice of the ACT and SAT, we can help them come up with a strategy that works for them. Of course, if they make the wrong choice, it's not irreversible. Many kids transfer. In fact, many of our own students who go off say, I really think I can do better in another school, and often they do that. So nothing is forever in college. Can't afford private college? Another thing we tell them is that if you apply to a school that wants you, if you have a transcript and scores that are on the high end of their acceptance rate, you will very likely be offered a merit scholarship. We work with our Jesuit schools also to help put a package together. And finally, Rutgers is my safety school. No, Rutgers is nobody's safety school. Rutgers Engineering is most definitely nobody's safety school. There are colleges in the New Jersey system that perhaps are your boys' safety school, and there are colleges in other state systems that they can get into or that they can think about. So we're seeing boys looking at SUNY, which is a good thing, and finding out that that's an accessible school for many of the boys at one of the campuses. And SUNY also very specialized for looking at other New Jersey schools. Okay? We really mean it when we tell them that life is filled with surprises. And we want them to be open to those surprises, but those surprises should not come when you're applying to college. You shouldn't surprise your college counselor by hitting 3 schools at the end of the process, or surprise your parents by not doing your essay until the night before. Those are not the surprises we're looking for. And as we do tell them, there are over 3,000 four-year colleges in this across the country, and there are many, many good fits. There's not just one college. It's not like finding the one spouse, the perfect spouse. There are many, maybe there are many spouses too, we just haven't settled on one and we stick it out. But for the most part, there are many, many more colleges that are fits than there are spouses that are fits. And I think I better stop right there. They also, it may not be personal. It is personal. We believe our admissions folks are really looking at your applications carefully. We know the ones with whom we have a good relationship, the schools that come in here. We know they are, and we know that many of the other schools are. But sometimes it is subjective, and we do try to tell them, guys, they're not selecting students, they're selecting a class. So if they get 500 fabulous, fabulous applicants from New Jersey, they may not take you all. They may take a slightly less fabulous applicant from South Dakota, okay? And you have to understand why. There's the desire for creating a good class, a tuba player, and someone who skateboards, a skateboarding championship. Maybe those are the qualities they're looking for. So think about that. It's not just how you look on paper, on your test scores, and your GPA. Also remember that you can be happy in many places, and I think they're open to that. I think that some of them have already indicated that there may be 6 or 7 schools that they think they could be happy at. That's a good thing. Finally, that this whole process before us is a journey, and it should be a happy journey. We'll have some bumps along the road, but what it should not be is a battle. We want to make this process, as we want to make this evening very pleasant for you and instructive. So I'm going to turn this over to Belkis.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Good. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what is the college counseling process here at Prep. So you all know it starts in sophomore year and it never ends. So we visit alumni on college campuses. We host the alumni to come back to Prep, and we'll be doing that in January. So your sons will have an opportunity to meet different students from different colleges and talk to them about their experiences at their respective schools. So we really do mean it when we say Prep for life. So let's take a little journey back to sophomore year. Not too long ago, right? So in sophomore year, the students were handling new responsibilities and expectations. They were introduced to the PSAT, which they took for the first time last year. They began planning for the college process just a little, and we introduced them to Naviance, and we discussed with them learning styles and time management. We also did career surveys and resume building with them, and that was all done during their time with their guidance counselors in their group guidance classes. We also did with them a resume builder, I think I said that, but a resume builder so that they could continue to build on that resume every single year. So this year we have had your sons go into Naviance and say, okay, well, what did you do this past summer? Make sure you add that to your resume on Naviance. So here we are, junior year. Much different, right? Much different amount of things. So in September, we talked with them about maintaining their grades and really becoming involved in clubs and organizations. I'm not going to go through all of this with you because we will be sending you the presentation. But there are some things that I really do want to highlight because they are really important. So in January, when the students come back, we will continue to develop relationships with them. But in February, we will be administering an actual ACT here on campus. And that is on February 28th. Okay? We register the students, they come in, they take the test under real test conditions, and they can then use that score. If they are happy with the score, they can use that score. So that is a real ACT under actual testing conditions, and they take it here at Prep. Okay, that's very important. Also, in January, parents, please call your guidance counselors so that you can make an appointment with them to come in and speak with them. We all have been meeting with our parents, but in January we start to get a lot more phone calls from parents of our juniors. So please feel free to call us, email us, come in for meetings. We love to sit with you and chat with you and really talk to you about where you see yourselves in the college process, where your son sees himself, and then we try to all get on the same page. The last thing I really want to highlight is in May, well, late April, early May, your sons will be asking for letters of recommendation, okay? There's a process for this, and we will review the process with them. So they don't just run up to a teacher and say, oh, can you please give me a letter of recommendation? I did so well in your class. There's a whole process to it. So we will go through that process with them, and they will be asking for letters of recommendation end of April, beginning of May. The teacher recommendation letters, they come from junior year teachers, not 9th grade teachers, not 10th grade teachers, okay? Junior year teachers. So we've been highlighting to our students, really start to develop those relationships with your junior year teachers because those are the teachers who are going to be writing your letters of recommendation. And I know this looks like a lot, but I promise you, we are going through all of these steps in group guidance. It looks like a lot, it is a lot, but we are definitely going through each of these pieces with our students. So we're also focusing more on leadership roles as the upperclassmen of the school. Next year, your sons will be the leaders of the school. They will be the ones that the younger students will look up to. So we really want them to develop into leaders, and we think that's very important. It looks great in the letters of recommendation and on resumes. So we really want them to become leaders of their clubs, organizations, captains of their team. We really push for that. We will walk through the college application process. This is more in second semester, so semester coming up. We will walk through the college application process. We reflect on career surveys. We will gain insight into what is a good fit and identify and research schools that match the criteria that they're looking for. And we will also begin the college essay during class, okay? Now, between junior year and senior year, that summer, we do have something called the college boot camp. It is 4 weeks. It's in the summer. It is end of June, and it ends at the end of July. But what it is it's a boot camp, and we only deal with the college application process. So some days, I've taught it for 2 years now, some days we only work on the college essay. Some days we will only work on a fit. What does your list look like? Some days we will only work on the scholarship process. So if that's something that you're interested in, maybe if you have a fall athlete, you can register them for that college boot camp summer program. And information will be out about that program in January. So just keep an eye out for that. Senior year. So these are all of the things that we do senior year. And we actually will be seeing you again in September for a senior parent night. So this is what we do senior year with your students. We have a senior parent night. And this year, I know it says here October, well, it doesn't say, but we will be having a financial aid night in conjunction with our senior parent night, because the application process has been moved up to October, and so we really want you to get that information before you have to fill out any forms. Okay. September we have, college reps come visit. We do a list, senior parent night. We have students taking the SAT, the ACT. CSS profile will also be discussed during our financial aid night in September. November 1st, 15th, and December 1st and 15th are huge deadlines. January, regular decision applications will be submitted. February to April, a lot of admissions and financial aid packages. May 1st is our national deposit deadline, and then June is graduation. So we will go over this in senior year, when your sons are seniors in September. And what we do with them in class, in our actual guidance classes, is we revisit some of the junior curriculum. We focus on the college application process and financial aid, so we will work with them if they have questions or issues regarding their FAFSA or CSS profiles. And there's a special focus on decision-making process regarding college and preparing for life after prep. So I will now turn it over to Mr. Julian.
Thank you, Ms. Dowd. Okay, so there are 3 legs to this stool, right? Student-parent and counselor really all have to work together to kind of get us through this process, right? We've been working on your students' confidence, we're working on their ability to advocate for themselves over the course of their time here. And so we really want them to take the lead role in this process with lots and lots of support from us and of course from you. So we want to make sure that they feel empowered and they take responsibility for this, right? So obviously, what do we need them to do? We need them to continue to work their best, right? As we get through the rest of this year, the junior grades are really the first thing that the colleges are going to see. Senior grades aren't ready until February, so where they leave off at the end of junior year is pretty much the major part of the impression they're going to make with colleges. We're hoping that they're having a conversation with you about their college process, right? Cost, location, size, majors, right? We're going through this now. We'll do it in greater detail as the year goes on. You know, and not just to say, okay, what's my dream school, but what are the characteristics of those schools, right? And once we can identify those characteristics, we can look at other schools that also have those criteria so that we're not just looking at this one particular school, but we start to put together a reasonable list. Of course, we see them once a cycle, and we'll meet with them individually as well over the course of the time. I love this one about maintaining authentic extracurricular activities. If there was ever some guidance counselor speak, that's it right there. What does that mean? In plain English, this is a good time to kind of focus and pare down to the things that are most significant for you, right? I think, you know, we encourage our sophomores to get involved and do a bunch of things. Hopefully by this point in junior year, you're identifying the things that are the most rewarding to you and that you're putting the most time into so that they can have some depth to those activities. The researching the colleges, that's really going to be an ongoing process for us through the year. Again, using Naviance as the major search tool, there's so much data there, and we want your sons to really take the lead role in knowing the details of these schools. Everything from being able to answer good questions about those schools, but also thinking ahead to, you don't want to have a conversation with an admissions rep from the school of your dreams and have that person realize you don't know anything about their school. We've been working on resumes now for a while, so we'll continue to work on those. We're going to spend a good amount of time working on the essay, mostly in the spring semester. We really want the boys to leave here in May with some good drafts of an essay ready to go. This might be breaking news to you, but adolescent boys, not so great when it comes to writing and talking about themselves. So we really have to push them on that. And you know, feel free as that time comes up in the spring to check in and ask how that's going and what are some of their ideas about the things they want to write about. Earlier this year, we had college reps visiting. Look at you moving slide on me. We had college reps visiting, and they'll be coming in the spring again. And it's very important for the boys to meet with the college reps when they are here. Visiting campuses. How many of you have done college visits with your sons already? All right, great. You guys are so ahead of the game. That's really terrific, right? It's really important to get on these campuses as much as possible. It's a recipe for disaster when guys wait until April of senior year to try to visit all 10 schools that they got accepted to, right? So let's try to get some of those visits in as we can. Thinking about next summer, right? This is a good time to be looking ahead. As much as possible, we want that summer before senior year to be one with some good substance, whether it's practical substance, spending time doing the college camp and getting it that way, or what are internship opportunities, right? Are there any programs on college campuses that we could get involved in? We do maintain some good lists in admissions, so if you'd like some help for some suggestions and things to do next summer, talk to your son's counselor. For the prospective Division I or II athletes in the room, right, we have to deal with the NCAA, so make sure that your son is on top of the process of registering with the NCAA clearinghouse. Again, more information available from your son's counselor. I wish I was in the Naviance payroll because we talk about it so much, but it really is a very terrific product. And one of the things that we do in class is to use the matching programs that are there to help them identify, again, once they come up with some criteria of schools that they like, what are some ones that perhaps they weren't familiar with, right? Okay, so this is my chance to kind of get on my high horse a little bit. This goes way back. I was a student here of the class of 1987, and if you did the math, my 30th reunion is coming up in spring. I look pretty good for my age, don't I? Okay, I know you were thinking that. The late great Father Ray Boldup, who was the college counselor back then, used to have us go through a 3-tiered process. We still use it today. I've changed the terminology a little bit. Okay, at the top of the list are the aspirational schools, what you might think of as reach schools. Right? And again, your sons are being told to understand why a school would fall into that criteria. It's primarily based on what the academic profile of that school is and how that compares to your own academic profile. Okay, so that's sort of the first thing, to understand that. But it also has to do with how selective the institution is, because oftentimes, even if your academic profile kind of fits the profile of the accepted student to that institution, if that school has a 25% or 15% or 18% acceptance rate, then we're likely going to characterize it as being an aspirational or reach because of the percentage of students who get accepted. And I don't use the word safety school because those of you in the room who are my generation, who wants to go to a safety school, right? Okay, we call them yes schools, and they're yes because of two things. One, we know that that school will say yes to your son, but the other side of this is very important. It should be a school that your son and you would also be willing to say yes to, right? Because I can come up with, off the top of my head, 15 safety schools, so to speak, for any of our kids, but if none of those are schools that he'd want to go to, then we don't want that on the list, right? So this does take some work to identify those schools that we know will say yes, and that you would say yes to. And in that middle group are the happy schools, right? I call it that because those are the schools that you'd be very happy to go to, right? And depending on the situation of your son, they're sort of in the middle of schools that maybe aren't a slam dunk to say yes, but that we know is a school where it'll be in consideration, or I like to say, be in the mix for being accepted, right? And in most cases, that tends to be the group of schools where most of our guys end up. So hence the moniker happy. Okay. And the last note from here, I mentioned earlier about requesting recommendation letters. Before your sons leave school, before the last day of school in May, right, they will have decided who they're going to ask to write the recommendations. They will have done a very nice questionnaire, and they will have given that, actually they'll submit it to Ms. Martineau in the guidance office, and then eventually teachers will get it. So all of our faculty who, put a lot of time and effort into these letters will have the entire summer to get a head start on writing these letters, and we ask them to have them done by October. So picture your son's favorite teacher sitting on the beach, down the shore, writing that recommendation letter. That's kind of the idea. Okay. So, who am I turning this over to for roll today? All right. Ms. Morris, you're up.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. So, role of the parent, again, is to do what you do best. Love, support, and encourage your sons. That's really the most important role for you. But also, of course, to talk and listen to your sons. It is so important that the conversation is beginning in the house between you and him so that you are on the same page. And with that being said, communicating with us as well. That's why it's so important to, if possible, to set up a meeting with your son's guidance counselor so that we can all be on the same page. But it's so important to have those discussions, particularly about finances, distance, what you think might be a good fit or what's important for your son. Because the worst thing is, months from now, next year, where your son's heart is set on a school, and that's absolutely not something that you're willing to do or can afford or willing to send him that distance. So it's so important to have those conversations. Organizing college information. Your sons are being bombarded, and maybe you are too, with mail, email, coming from all sorts of schools, scholarships. So kind of helping him weed out what's important and what's not important. Deciding on, if there's schools that you are familiar with. If you're not familiar with, maybe looking into it. We tell our students all the time, just because you've never heard of a school doesn't mean that it's not a good school. It might actually be a really great fit for you. So it's good to kind of look into it, but then whatever if you're not interested, kind of tuck them away and save what you feel is important. It's really important at this point, if they haven't already, maybe having a file or some sort of organizational system so that you are holding on to things that are important that you may need later. And reviewing what's being done in Naviance is very important. I'm sure all of you have been in the Naviance accounts by now, hopefully. So you can log into the accounts, the student logs in, and the counselor logs in, and it's a great way for all of us to kind of be on the same page, reviewing the list, reviewing what they're interested in, so that we can help, coming up with that right, good fit list of schools for the kids. But it's so important if you go in and you do something in Naviance to make sure you let your sons know. Oftentimes we're sitting with students and we say, oh, you're interested in this school, and the student has no idea that that school is in his list, and it's because a parent added that school. So just make sure that you're communicating and letting them know when you're adding or changing things. Sometimes the student will say, I had a school there and it's no longer there. So you really just want to be communicating all the time. You can't stress that enough. Working with your son to help him narrow down his list. Again, Naviance is a great tool for that. So you can do college searches, and we encourage students to do that. You know, beginning in sophomore year, what we do with our students in group guidance is really, we kind of present it as this is a journey of self-discovery. So your son's figuring out what their strengths and weaknesses are, what their interests are, so that they can kind of come up with all of these wonderful criteria that they're looking for in a school. But by the end of junior year, they really want to narrow down that huge list of all these great things that I hope all of my schools will have, to these are the 5, non-negotiable things that I really want my school to have. So what are they really looking for, and what's really their priority in terms of coming up with the good fits? So helping them come up then based on those criteria with their list of schools. And by the time they leave here in junior year, we really would like them to have a pretty good list of schools that they're really interested in, and ideally to be visiting, if not by then, definitely by the summer, so that when they come back in the fall, their list is kind of finalized with, okay, these are the schools that I really want to apply to. And with that, Naviance, again, is a great tool. It's true we should be getting paid for plugging Naviance constantly, but it is such a great tool to kind of see where your son fits in comparison with those schools. What are their chances of getting in, what do they offer, and what are the statistics based on students from prep that have actually applied to that school. So it's a great tool again. Keeping important dates organized. Again, this is a really great time for students to kind of be thinking ahead for testing. So juniors will be likely taking the SAT or the ACT in the spring. So kind of looking at the calendar and figuring out when is the best test dates for them. Do you have a wedding coming up? Is your older brother or sister graduating from college in June? Do you need to take an SAT subject test, which can't be taken on the same day as the SAT? So things like that, kind of planning ahead, because the dates are limited. So figuring out which dates are best for you. Is your son going on a Kairos? Is he busy with baseball? What have you? So really kind of looking at the calendar and planning out what the best test dates are for them. And of course, any other deadlines for scholarships and things like that. I mentioned already visiting campuses. That's very important. So Christmas break might be a good time. Winter break, Easter break are all good opportunities for students to be visiting colleges. It's never too soon to do that. It's also great to do that when the schools are actually in session, so you really see what's going on at the school. Again, supporting your son on his journey and encouraging confidence and self-advocacy. We love talking to you all, it's wonderful. But it's really great when the students come in and can kind of advocate and ask their own questions, and kind of putting them in charge, being responsible for this process. And lastly, maintaining a healthy perspective on things. So again, this can be, it shouldn't be, it does not need to be. We are there to walk you and the boys through it every step of the way. But it obviously comes off as a very stressful time. So we don't want it to be any more stressful than it needs to be. So your role, again, is to really kind of try to keep things in perspective and not add to that. So again, communicating with them, staying in communication with us is really important. Again, if you want, you certainly are encouraged to set up an appointment with your son's counselors in the spring, so that you can kind of begin this process and seeing, what schools you and he and us are coming up with. Mr. Giglio mentioned the letters of recommendations for students, but you have some homework as well. In May or June, you will receive an email asking you to fill out kind of a questionnaire, kind of, what would you call it? Summarizing highlights, greatest moments of your son. So those are really helpful for us to get some insight and perspective from you as parents who obviously know them in a much better and a different way than we do. So please make sure that you fill those out and send them back in a timely manner. And remember that this is your son's journey, so talking is important, but most importantly, listening to them is vital. Really listening to where they're at and what they're saying when they're not saying it as well. It's very sad and difficult for us to work with some students where they have their heart set on something and they really can't go for it because they're being pressured to go in a different direction. So really listening to what your students want and what they're good at. What's next for parents? Again, he must take ownership. You're not going to be with him in college, so it's really important that he takes control of this process. Scheduling the meetings with us, as we said, keeping deadlines organized, and keeping Naviance up to date, and again, communicating with them and with us if you make any changes to the Naviance program.
Just a quick note for me, this doesn't apply to everybody, but just to make folks aware. There's a growing phenomenon of families working with independent college counselors. Some of you may be very, very familiar with that, others, this might be something new. So we've decided to really give some detailed guidance on this. Generally speaking, we don't feel there's any need to be hiring somebody to help you with the college process. So there's 6 of us here at Prep. Our guidance counselor ratios are really good for a school of our size, and we think that we're in pretty good shape to walk you through everything that has to happen. But of course, it's a family decision. You may feel there's a need for getting some outside assistance, and in some particular circumstances, it can be understandable. What we're really asking for is for there to be some discussion with your son's counselor, and that it be kind of out in the open, so that we can know what your concerns are, and if it makes sense for you to work with someone on the outside, then fine. But if you're concerned that maybe your son isn't someone who's going to be on top of all the work that he has to do, you can consider the summer course if the schedule allows, because Ms. Dallin, I think, is Ms. Morrison, are you teaching again this year as well? Or is it Ms. Nordstrom? Anyway, whoever it is, along with Ms. Dallin, they really get it done. By the time they're done with that program of 4 weeks, they'll have their applications finished and ready to go. So the reason that we need the full disclosure is we really want to be able to be in communication with that outside person, because ultimately your son's school counselor, that's us, is the counselor of record and the only person who can be communicating with the college admissions offices. So it's very important that we do that, because we're your son's advocate. If you're looking to hire somebody, I just want to do a little caveat emptor. Please check the qualifications of the individual that you might be hiring, okay, and check references as well. Independent counselors really should be members of NACAC, which is the National Association of College Admission Counseling, or at least the New Jersey chapter, NJACAC, and certainly to be a part of the Independent Educational Consultants Association, IECA, right? They have a whole rubric of how folks can qualify to be independent counselors, number of years of experience, etc. So just be wary of the person who hangs a shingle and decides they're going to be a college counselor. I have one very short anecdote from my own personal experience. I recently had to go visit with a tax preparer to find out some information for our taxes, which were going to be complicated. And I noticed that the gentleman had a sign at his door, and it was, Joe Smith tax preparation. Then it was, I'm making up the word, Dream Achieve college counselors. I said, oh, I see you share office space with someone who does college counseling. He said, oh no, that's me. That's just what I do in my slow season. Said, oh, okay. So of course I asked him, and his entire qualifications were that he had put 3 kids through college. Now I'm not saying he didn't learn some things doing that, but there are professionals out there, and I did ask him what his fees were, but really just be aware. And this last one I really am brave to keep it on, because there are some folks out there. No one should be guaranteeing you that they're going to get your son into a particular school. Okay, that's just not happening. And if they're doing that, I would say look in the other direction. Okay, so that's my little one-slide speech on working with outside counselors, and I will now turn things over to Mr. Ranty, who's getting better at this keeping us relaxed stuff.
So I just want to let you know that all of the 6 college counselors at Prep have children. and they range in age from 4 months to in their 30s. Two of us, Mr. Zandero and I, have put our kids through college. And I have to say that, we've seen them successfully to adulthood, but there have been so many, at least for me, I don't want to speak for him, he's more relaxed and philosophical, and I'm an Italian mother. So there have been really many, many moments of guilt, and I still think back on the mistakes I made, a lot of the things that I wish I hadn't done. My children reminded me, they were not shy about reminding me about the mistakes I was making as I was making them. And I was a new college counselor when my daughter was a junior in a small, very competitive school in Summit, New Jersey. And I contributed greatly to the stress she felt. She was quiet and shy a little bit, and she didn't lash out at me. But I was standing at the kitchen sink babbling about colleges and what we had to do and what we were going to visit, and she just stomped her feet and said, "Mom, do you realize that every conversation we've had this year has been about college? We never talk about anything else." And she took me aback, and I said, "You're absolutely right. What happened to our wonderful relationship?" And I really kind of took a deep breath, and I shifted gears at that point. And I still completely schemed and tricked her into seeing the college I knew that would be perfect for her. I engineered the whole thing, but I didn't let her know. She still doesn't know this. And it all worked out really well, but I stopped driving her crazy. And then when her brother was ready 3 years later, I put him in the driver's seat, and as a result, we went to the college that is as farthest away from Maplewood, New Jersey as it's possible to get on the continental United States, and he now still lives out in California. So I'm the poster mom for why you should not let your children pick their school, some people say, but he's also a happy kid. So I did experience the stress that they and their classmates went through, and I watch our boys, and I just want to talk about it briefly with you, although I'm sure you know, but this is a prep school. It's a college prep school, and by its very nature, we're going to generate some of these conditions. All of our boys, or the vast majority, fit the bill. They're high achieving, they're diligent. They have a lot of friends, and they have friends here and friends in their, where they live. They have to excel, and they do, in classroom, in clubs, and in sports. They have a lot of responsibilities. Council, football, basketball, crew, whatever club they're in, robotics, academic ball. And there are also a lot of them in their communities. A lot of them are in youth group in their parishes or their churches. They're doing service, they're leading retreats. We also expect them to be very polite, respectful at all times, which means not blow off steam as many students do. And God knows they don't have that many opportunities here because, there are no girls around. And when we have a dress code, and we're rather strict. And this is the most important thing. I think they know they're on a competitive track, and for many of them, there really is a razor-thin margin for missteps. They are so worried about getting a C, or having a concussion and having to stay out for 2 weeks, and having not being able to keep up with their work, or they can't change direction. They're really worried. And if they're not, they are getting that stress from their friends, because I think stress is more contagious than the flu, truly. So we need to be aware of that. We are aware of that, but I think a lot of it also comes from home because you're worried about them. It's a crazy world. We want the best for them. How do we get them there without making them hate us for a few years and really feel completely stressed out? I think something that we do experience once in a while is that they really sometimes feel we see them deflate. It looks like the wind has been taken out of their sails. It's a physical thing. And they don't, they don't know really that we all understand them. They don't have time for anything they'll come in and say, I'm gonna get hammered this weekend. They don't get drunk. Hammered with work. I'm gonna get blasted. I won't sleep tonight. I'll be up till 4. Okay. And these are kids who are moving along, who are keeping up with their work. They're losing control and they're losing their choice in the matter. And sometimes they really do act as if they don't care about anything. So what can we do? And I think one of the things that we do is, and I've got to believe it, they can be successful without taking 4 AP and 3 honors classes every year, without staying up till 4 o'clock, and without getting into one of the top 10 universities in the country. If it's a natural, and there are boys here who manage that, there are maybe 2 or 3 every year who manage that with little stress, but there are a lot of others who don't. So what we want to try to do is all get to know the boy and help him figure out which kid he is. Let him know that if it doesn't work out, if Stanford doesn't happen, he will have a full life. He really will. So what can we do? Well, we can help them become aware of their own motivations and their own desires. What do they really want? And if you ask one of the 226, actually, we have 226 seniors this year. If you ask each of them what they're going to do with their lives, what will you be? I can tell you this, we're going to have 100 engineers, 50 hedge fund managers, 50 entrepreneurs, 20 doctors, 5 lawyers, and 1 teacher. Okay? That's my personal survey. I think that I'm pretty horrified by that, but I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. Oh, really? Okay. They don't know what it is, but they're going to do it anyway. So, and if there are boys out there, and I know there are, I'm not making fun of you. I'm truly not. I want you to think about really why we give you these do what you are and other assessments is, what kind of person are you? Are you an extrovert, an introvert? How do you take in your information? How do you make decisions? What would you be good at? What will make you happy? We also, I think, want to help them become more self-reliant. And, we're not saying, oh, you can walk to school in my day, I did this, I had 3 jobs, and I collected bottles, and I turned them in. It's not quite the same world, but a lot of them could be a little bit more self-reliant. And also, Mr. D'Angelo has a favorite expression, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, when I'm trying to make a point with them. But I think that we are often talking about be your best, do the modest, the more and more, but we're going to run out of steam if we keep looking for more and if we keep looking for perfection. We also want to let them participate. We always talk about find a job and the leadership, find a club, the leadership role. But there are times when we just have to let them participate in something and just have some fun, right? And again, this is the big lesson I learned, and I will take it with me to my grave. Make time for family activities and conversations that do not revolve around the college search process. And just enjoy them, because once you drop them off at college, it's a whole different family dynamic. So enjoy them while you've got them.
Hi, my name is Sarah Morissette, and I am, in fact, the newest member of the Parent Club. And it never occurred to me that I was at a deficit, not having children and doing what I do. It never occurred to me. But I can say with absolute conviction, first and foremost, God bless you. I'm so happy to be a part of your team and family as parents, but you could have warned me, okay? And I think that of course, I had a son, of course, just like all the boys said I would, of course. They had a lot of great name recommendations, Aloysius, Winston, not the choices that we went with. But I can say with honesty that I look at your boys through a whole new lens, and I loved them before, but I love them even more now, because I get it, or at least more than I did 4 months ago. So bravo to you and what you do, and I do think that I'm a better counselor for it. I hope. We'll see. So with all that being said, that's a lot of work, everything that we're outlining. So your question should be, what the heck are you guys doing? What are you doing? And I think part of the reason that we are all here at PrEP and chose to work at PrEP is that the community and the administration has prioritized your son's wellness, well-being, personal counseling, college counseling, mental health, career counseling, so much that it is built into their schedule. I've never worked at a school where I was given time in the classroom, guaranteed time with my students. So with all this being said that we have to do, we do get to see your boys well over 30 times a year, whether they like it or not. They're going to see their counselor in a classroom setting, and that's where we're doing most of this work. The role of the counselor, our number one role is to be your son's advocate, to be his muscle, to be his sounding board. And we do that throughout the college process and throughout their time at PrEP. As upperclassmen counselors, we've been with your sons for 2 years now, and we'll be with them through the college process, which I really love that commitment. So we're working to be communicative between your son, between his teachers, sometimes being a communicator between yourself and your son. So making sure that everybody's on the same page. While we work so closely with your son, we also do a lot of professional development for ourselves. We're constantly going on college tours, meeting with college representatives. Many of us, before coming to PrEP, worked in college admissions or financial aid, and we still have a big fat Rolodex of those relationships that we lean on very much to understand, well, what are colleges seeing with the latest SAT? How are things being read? So we're using that very much as well. So let's time out really quick. Can someone tell me how many Jesuit colleges and universities are there in the United States? What do we think? Please. 28. Can we get a prize for this fine lady over here? Yes, 28. Thank you very much. We're going to come back to a second round of trivia shortly. So what's happening now? This fine lady in the gray sweater. Thank you so much. So what's happening now? Group guidance, so your sons recently took the PSAT. They should be getting their results back via email sometime in the next week. We are speaking with them in the classroom as to what to do with that data, how can we use it. That data will also be uploaded into Naviance, so that's another tool for which you can look at. My son's interested in Georgetown. What is the data that we have? PSATs, helping us kind of get closer and closer to that fit. Building that list. We're doing one-on-one appointments, so of course we're seeing each of your sons in the classroom setting once every 8 days, but then we're also meeting with them one-on-one, and this will really kick up in the new year. So we'll be meeting with your sons, further discussing things. If you'd like to be at those meetings, as we said, you're more than welcome. Something that we talk a lot about is values. I mean, what is the student looking for? Now, of course, most of your beloved boys are looking for co-ed, sports, far away, and that's pretty much, and business, of course. And with those 4 things, that's how they're going to find out where they're going to apply to college. But we really work with them, and we've been working with them for a while now because it's a big concept. What are your non-negotiables? If a school comes along and gives you a blank check, Joe Schmo, we'd love to have you. We want to give you a full ride. If this school doesn't have fill in the blank, then it's not a good fit for you. For example, many of our students need a small classroom experience. They need to be in a classroom where the teacher knows their name. Here at PrEP, it's a pretty intimate setting. We discussed that with your sons. Does that work for you? Is that important to your experience? Or could you hold your own in a classroom like this, where the teacher simply presents, there's no question answer, there's no attendance taken. Some of our students absolutely can hold their own academically in that type of setting, but not all. What about the Jesuit values? Is that something that you've enjoyed? Campus ministry, you say CMT is really, campus ministry team is something you want next year. Do you think that maybe having community service or a Jesuit background, is that important to you? What about getting home? I know you don't believe it, but you will want to come home once in a while. Now, when I went through the college process a number of years ago, I said to my mom, Mom, I'm thinking like a 4-hour radius. She said, no. She said, 2-hour radius. I said, 2 hours, that's nothing. She goes, that's a 4-hour drive for me. Because I drive 2 hours, you get out of the car, I drive 2 hours home, 4 hours. And I was like, oh, parents do know what they're talking about. But talking about simple things, I had a friend that went to school on the West Coast. He went to Stanford, had a great experience, but he was allowed to come home once a year. You're not flying home for fall break and Thanksgiving and Christmas. So he had to choose. Now, in my house, I kid you not, I am 34 years old, and I have never not been at my parents' house for Christmas Eve and Christmas morning. Only last year did I not sleep over at their house because I was pregnant. So being away from home for the holidays, for me, was a non-negotiable. I have to be home with my family. So getting your sons to think kind of beyond a business program, a Division I sports team, a co-ed school, getting them to understand those non-negotiables. So throughout this entire process, when they apply, when they get accepted, next spring, when we're left with maybe 5 acceptances, those are good possibilities. Worst case scenario, that your son gets into 5 schools and he says, but I don't want to go there. Then we've really failed him in this process. So that's what we're working on. We mentioned earlier NCAA eligibility. For any student that thinks he might want to play at the college level, this does not include intramurals, does not include club team, should be registered with the NCAA clearinghouse. NCAA has to approve your son to play at the college level. We recommend that this is done before he comes back senior year, ideally by June. And once again, this is something that we're going to kind of push on our students in the spring semester. There's no commitment, but if your son thinks that he wants to be a college athlete, he should go through this process. And it's pretty simple. All can be done online. Okay, no smartphones. There are 28 Jesuit colleges and universities. Can you name them all? Give me one. Loyola what? Loyola Maryland. Loyola Chicago, Loyola Marymount. University of San Francisco, St. Peter's. Fordham, St. Joe's, Fairfield. BC, Holy Cross, Santa Clara, Georgetown, Marquette, good. Seattle, good. New Orleans, absolutely. I try not to tell them, but I'm like, come on, 4 years in New Orleans. That's a bad recommendation. Like, God, I would kill. How many we got? We got 15. Oh, Creighton, good. Scranton, Gonzaga, good. Come on, I need some love from over here.
10 more.
Canisius, good. Say it again. Wheeling, ooh, good one. Double points. Boston College, did we say Boston College?
Yep.
Okay. No. No. Spring Hill, triple points. Excellent. Detroit Mercy, good. 6 more. St. Louis, SLU, Billikens. Xavier, good. Not Dayton. St. Joe's, yes, my alma mater. I made sure the Hawks were in there. Someone said Fairfield. John Carroll, excellent. No, it's a high school.
3 more. I got 25.
We said San Francisco, not San Diego. Marquette, they said that, sorry. I appreciate that hand though. Do we give up? We have 3 more? That was pretty good, guys. Lemoyne, good. Excellent. What are our last two? Do we know? Gonzaga. This is the first year that we haven't gotten them all right, so now we're really on the spot to remember the other ones. We said all the Loyolas. We said Santa Clara, we said San Francisco, St. Joe's, Georgetown. Spring Hill was good. That was a good one. Regis, good.
Oh, yeah, one more.
Regis in Denver. There's none in Maine. No. All right, we're going to come back to this so that we don't all have to sleep over here tonight. I'll leave it to my colleagues to figure out that last one that we're missing. So once again, a big part of this process is simple organization. Simple to us adults, not so simple to your sons, okay? But once again, good old Naviance, there's a screen right there that will help us stay organized. All the deadlines that we need to know as far as college applications. One of the greatest things that we do is that your son will work on his list over the summer. He'll come back in September and say, here are the schools I want to apply to. I would say 80% solid, with a few that he might add on at a later date. He's then going to work with his counselor to figure out, how do I apply? I mean, each of his schools have 3 or 4 or 5 college deadlines. So how do I know? Do I apply regular? Do I apply early? What is this, rolling? So we're going to help your son figure out which deadline has the highest probability of yielding an acceptance. I don't care how we get an acceptance, we just want the acceptance. Most of our students, there's a trend that most students apply early action. This simply means, hey, look at me, I've got my act together, I've got my application together, and I'm ready to apply, usually middle October, early November. For most of those schools, you will get a decision of some sort right around, Christmas. To be a happy or less than jolly holiday, okay? Early action, it's non-binding, meaning it's a simple acceptance. Early decision, your son, and we have very few students that choose this option, your son can choose one school, and if he has accepted that school, it's game over. He has to go. Now, the benefit of early decision is process is over. However, the challenge with this is that it takes really any kind of conversation at home, and particularly a financial conversation, out of the question. It's not that the school won't offer your son financial aid, you just don't get to see that information before making your final decision. So it's a real gamble. The early decision is such a big deal. Your son signs a binding contract, you sign this binding contract, and little old me signs this binding contract, promising that your son will be there in the fall. So I have 65 seniors this year, it's quite a big group. I maybe have 2 students that are choosing this route. It is surely not for everyone, and for the average prep student, it is that financial piece. I can't guarantee that I want to go there, or that frankly, they might not, the student might change his mind. I say to my boys all the time, I don't even know what I'm having for breakfast tomorrow, let alone where I want to be in 9 months. So you're giving up that choice. The other options, rolling, priority, they're just kind of other ways of saying early. Regular, there's nothing wrong with regular. Very often students who are applying to perhaps a more competitive school, a school that they don't quite have the chops for, those aspiring schools, we may recommend to hold off and apply regular decision, a later date, January, end of December or January, so that we have some more data from their senior year. Because there's a really good chance that the college is going to want to see, well, how you doing senior year? Senioritis, it's a real thing. We know it and remember it well. So the colleges may kind of want to check in on your son. So we have to make sure we're staying on top of our game throughout senior year. Standardized testing. It is a necessary evil. It is what it is. So PSATs are coming back this week. This is going to be a great tool to help us figure out which test is best for your son. Every school will accept either the SAT or the ACT equally. One is not better than the other. But we've been working with your sons for quite a while now to highlight the differences in each test. We believe you should test smarter, not harder. You don't just sit for the SAT as many times as you possibly can and run yourself into the ground. Let's do some research. Oh, you did better on the ACT? Well, great, then let's put our efforts there. We are offering that in-house ACT, and that's mostly because ACT currently doesn't have a practice test. But we want all of our students to have exposure to both the SAT and the ACT before they have to officially start taking their tests. Some of our students may choose to use those February scores, excuse me. But most of our students probably won't, meaning they're going to do better on the ACT if they choose that test. In the future, they might end up throwing out those scores and not using them. For some of the more aspiring and rigorous schools, subject tests are required. What's a subject test? You've taken the SAT or ACT. Oh, but wait, there's more. We want you to take another test. And those are subject tests. Those are hour-long, kind of mini SATs in a specialized subject, in English, in biology, in chemistry. Not all students will need to take this test whatsoever, but it's an important piece to look at. As Ms. Morris mentioned, the SAT subject tests are run by the College Board. College Board runs the SATs. The standard SATs and the subject tests are offered on the same day. You can't be in two places at once. So once again, you're doing a little extra scheduling to accommodate that. One last thing. There are test optional schools that do not require test scores at all. Of course, your son's eyes light up. Yes, I don't need to, okay? With that being said, I always use a caveat. Boys, I need this couch moved. 4 of you are going to help me move this couch up to my 3rd floor apartment. Okay? If the student doesn't submit SAT or ACTs, I explain to them that couch still has to get upstairs. So that means there's that much more pressure on the transcript, the letters of rec, and the essay. It's not necessarily for the kid that doesn't test well. So, bottom line, test optional schools, test optional, is that best for me? It's an important conversation your son should have with his counselor, because it's not for everyone. Free test prep. Probably the only time we've used the word free this evening. Free test prep is available through Khan Academy. When your son gets his PSAT scores, there will be a link right on that website that will link him right to Khan Academy. Khan Academy has paired up with College Board, and Khan Academy will provide free test prep for your son based on his performance on the PSAT. It's awesome. It's brilliant. So if he did really well on English, Khan Academy is not going to waste his time on English. They're going to focus on the math that he struggled with. So it's tailored, it's free, we love it. Naviance, it's pretty much the way that we stay organized. The counselor, the parent, the student. It is our online manila folder where we keep all our notes. Naviance is private, meaning the only people that can see that information are myself, your son, and you. Colleges cannot access this information. So this is where we keep our resume. This is where we keep a list of colleges that I've heard of but I want to learn more about. This is where we keep all of our test scores listed. So it's a wonderful tool, as we've said, that we use very, very much. You should, as parents, have access to Naviance. If you don't, simply contact your counselor, ask your son to reach out to us, and we can take care of that for you. Yes. Okay. We are moments away from wrapping up. Don't you worry. I hand it over to Mr. Gilliam.
Thank you. Ms. Barnes said you could be standing by with the other mic for questions in a moment. Just quickly, as I mentioned, we're going to send out this presentation to you. So this is just a helpful resource list when you have this at home. The link to Naviance is there. We do have a blog we maintain. It's a place where we tend to put things like summer programs or special information about those kinds of things, and there's the link for that. We do tweet as at Prep Guidance, so you can follow us there. Just a quick plug for Colleges That Change Lives, a terrific group of schools that don't have the biggest names but are very well renowned for being quality institutions. If you're interested in learning more about test optional schools, the information is there, and there's the link to the NCAA Clearinghouse. And who's got the remote? Go ahead.
I was going to say, last but not least, they did figure it out. The school that we were missing was Rockhurst in Missouri. I'm not going to take any points off that we missed that one, because that's a hard one.
That's right. Okay, good. All right, so we went a little longer than we typically do, but we have some time for questions. So Sarah's got her big girl shoes on and is going to come to you with a microphone. Any questions from the group tonight?
Yes, I want to know when you say aspirational, exactly, yes, about how many of each should they be?
Oh, great, thanks for asking that. You know, we say to the boys, by the time we get to the end of the year, there are a number of things that they will have done. They will have asked their teachers for recommendation letters. They will have taken a stab at a version of a college essay, and they'll have their college list. And we're shooting for 10, right? And that list could be much bigger than that over the course of the year, but ideally it should be in that range. And I'd like to kind of spread it out evenly, with the biggest chunk being in the middle. So, you know, maybe 2, if not 3, yes schools, 2, 3 aspirational schools, and then the happy schools in the middle. And, you know, I think that where the opportunity for growth is on the aspirational side. If you decide you want to apply to 7 aspirational schools, then you can't cram the other categories into the 3 that are left, right? So in some cases, the list may be longer, and you might need some additional time over the course of the summer to pare it down. So again, everybody's list is going to be different, but we're asking them to, was that you or me, to be in the neighborhood of 10 when we leave in June. Okay, yes.
Thank you. The list of the Jesuit schools, all else being equal and in very broad terms, educate as much as they can. Would a Jesuit graduate from high school have slightly better opportunity applying to those Jesuit schools than a non-Jesuit graduate from high school?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I guess you noticed we're kind of pushing those Jesuit schools a little bit. You know, we do have, for the most part, very good relationships with all those schools going back many years, and a very healthy track record in a lot of those places. And so it does make a difference. It can make a big difference, and in some cases, you know, a smaller difference, but it does make a difference, right? You know, a place like a Georgetown or a BC, you know, a very competitive admission, but at the same time, I think we had 6 guys going to BC last year, maybe 11 who got in. You know, and that's 25 guys applied, but that's a big number for a school like that. You know, say that. Yeah, St. Joe's. Well, that's your alma mater. You want to address that one?
Gladly. We have a great relationship with St. Joe's. We don't get quite as much attention from Georgetown as the other kind of regional Jesuit schools, but Fairfield, Scranton, St. Peter's, St. Joe's, all the reps come here. They do one-on-one interviews with the boys if they'd like. So just the opportunity to share, you know, have one-on-one time, that's the edge that Jesuit piece is going to get you. It's going to get you some face time that you might not, you know, schools no longer generally allow interviews. They just don't have the time. So the fact that we are a Jesuit school, those reps are coming here. They want to spend time with your boys. They want to sit down. So we do have interviews, and that's really, really rare. But if I can say, I think we have a great relationship with St. Joe's, and it's a really nice place to be.
In many cases, we do have the opportunity to speak with those folks and kind of review our applicants and kind of make a case, which is very helpful. And I just forgot what I was going to say about that. So go ahead.
I know you can spend all night on this, but what are some strategies for maximizing financial aid options?
Okay, financial aid. Let me just put a placeholder there because my middle-aged brain remembered what I was going to say, which is if you're a data person, right, again, you can go into Naviance and see the history, right, of a lot of those schools. Just if you pulled up Fordham and Naviance, you can see there were 60 applications last year, 37 guys who got in. You can do that for almost any of the schools if there's enough, there are enough applicants to put together a graph. Financial aid. Where's Ms. Dowd? Ms. Dowd, you're a financial aid expert. Do you want to address this a little bit? While you're coming to the microphone, just a couple of things. The financial aid process has really changed. We're going to spend some time in September. We'll do a financial aid workshop then to walk you through the filing of. There's really two major forms you have to fill out: the FAFSA and the CSS profile. And maybe steal your thunder, Ms. Dowd, but the other part I was going to make is that we do spend some time thinking about, and we want feedback from you as parents about finding schools that have merit scholarships, right? Because oftentimes that can be what makes a difference for affordability for many of you. Just repeating the question again, it was strategies for financial aid?
Yeah, what are some typical strategies that families use to maximize financial aid costs?
Okay, so the best strategy I can give you is those deadlines are hard and fast. So it's not like, okay, if the FAFSA comes out on October 1 and the school wants it by November 1, it has to be there by November 1. Because if it is not, so financial aid offices work off of first come, first serve. So if you are on the list as coming in, submitting your FAFSA by October 30th, let's say, and someone else is November 15th, well, you're going to be eligible for more aid than someone else. So that's for everybody. Those financial aid deadlines, they are the real deal. For the CSS profile, the deadline is October 15th. For some schools, it's November 15th. Different schools do have different deadlines, so depending on the school that your sons will be applying to, they have to stay true to those deadlines because it really does work off of a first come, first served basis. A lot of families do look for outside scholarships. A lot of your towns may offer scholarships. Any organizations that you're in, jobs, they also offer scholarships, private scholarships. But what you really want to do is you really have to get those, if you are applying to a scholarship and they want an essay by January 15th, that essay has to be postmarked January 15th for consideration.
Two things I would also jump in with on that. One is, that's a great topic of conversation for that parent meeting that we'd like to have in the spring. Because again, as we put together that list, to be looking at places that we know either have been generous with financial aid or that are generous with merit scholarships, and to understand for your particular family situation where you need to fall there, right? So that we can factor that, And lastly, thanks to the federal government, all colleges now have a financial aid estimator that should be, it's available on their website. Whether it's easy to find is another story. But in most cases now, that will allow you to see how much money they would give you based on the information that you've input. And that's helping out a little bit because it's a little bit of a black hole because institutional priorities change from year to year, right? This year a school might be giving out a lot of merit money, and in a different year they may change that, and that allows you to peek behind the curtain a little bit and see what kind of financial aid strategy and scholarship strategy they're using. Okay, next question. In the front here, who's got the mic? Yeah, okay.
In your experience, will it become more clear for my son or in general, what they're looking for when you visit college campus?
Yeah, that clarity, that's something that we talk about in group guidance class, what to look for when they're visiting the college campus, and there's some good checklists in that book as well. That's one of the reasons to probably ask folks to really start visiting campuses early. What we all kind of pray for as college counselors is that our boys step onto some campuses and get that gut feeling that help them to differentiate from that. The one thing that we have to kind of, fasten our seatbelts for is that they are 16, 17-year-old boys, and sometimes we have to get through all the spring of senior year to kind of figure that out, right? Which is why, thinking back to the list, our mantra is options. We want to give you options so that when we get to April of senior year, there are some choices there. Because, it wouldn't be the first time that a student went into senior year thinking, A, B, and C, and then ending up E, G, and F. Right? So those changes could happen. Okay. I think we have time for one more. I'm getting the look. Yeah.
I was curious about the summer and the boot camp in terms of what are the hours a day, the 5 days a week, how many weeks does that run? Thinking about scheduling college trips in the summer as well. And then also, I guess, to get essays done, you haven't really selected the schools, right? Just in general essays with a common app, and then you put all the pieces together.
Let me talk about the essays and then fill in the information on the groups. Yeah. So what we work on in guidance will be sort of the main essays for the Common App, right? They'll by then they'll decide which 5 choices they have. So we'll go over those in class, and then in the fall, when they come back, we'll look at the smaller things, right? The individual questions that colleges might have. And we start that process, by the way, just getting them to write about themselves, not even looking at what the question is, right? Because that's a multi-reading exercise. Ms. Marcia, do you have the info on this one first?
Yeah, absolutely. And with the writing piece, we'll do a lot of writing with them. So ideally, they have a portfolio. So when they come across a school that they're interested in, oh man, I have to write 2 essays. Hopefully, there's something already started in there, so they're not starting from scratch. So historically, the boot camp has been about 2.5 hours a day, 8:15 to 10:45, Monday through Friday. But it really depends on how many students we have, the interest. We also do college visits in that as well. So every Wednesday, you'll have 3 college visits. And we spread them out historically. We'll go to 3 very different schools, just to point out kind of what you're looking for and hear the differences. But feel free to, if you have specific questions about that, you can email myself, Morissette, or Ms. Donald. We've tried it in the past.
All right, thanks, folks. Again, the conversation will be ongoing. I know there's some more questions. We're here for individual conversations, and thank you very much.